You say Kathy? Gotcha.
Name is Victoria. I'm an LCSW in Fairbanks, Alaska, with a really huge passion for creating spaces where people feel safe, seen, and empowered in their healing. My path into, well, I'm going to pause there because I started answering that first question. Pause. Sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead. We're here for it. I'm just gonna reintroduce you.
Yeah.
'Cause I need to re-record this. So
Okay.
we are here today with Victoria Murphy from Fairbanks, Alaska, if you missed the intro, and she's an amazing LCSW. And we're here kind of talking about the summit. Can you tell us a little bit about your passions and what you plan to talk about at the summit?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my passion is really creating spaces where people feel safe, seen, heard, supported, and empowered in their healing. And so, at the summit, I plan to talk about the journey within and how we can set energetic boundaries to really thrive in life and in relationships.
Mhm.
So how did you come up with this content? You saw the post, we were looking for speakers. What went on in your mind?
Yeah, when I saw the post, I immediately kind of thought, right now in my life, I've been doing a lot of work with energetic boundaries and also with clients. And just that click of, I think this would be such a great fit for what is going on here. And so then I submitted a little application and here we are.
So what is it? Can you talk a little bit about for the listening audience about energetic boundaries and kind of how you see that?
Absolutely. So energetic boundaries. I really like that phrase because it's about looking at how we're exchanging energy with people and things in our life so that we can get really clear on what may be taking too much from us or maybe spots where we're giving too much and also be able to identify people, things, etc. that are really pouring into us because sometimes life is crazy, life is busy. We kind of just get stuck in this automatic flow of like this is how my life has to be, but that isn't necessarily true. And by looking at these energetic boundaries and
Mhm.
relationships that we have, we're able to make adjustments as we go along to be able to make sure that we're living this really balanced life with relationships.
So what kind of background inspired you to kind of do this work and be a healer? Kind of, and Tamera has a lot of good information on the healer and the healer perspective, maybe that you can add, as we're kind of going through. So can you talk to us, the development of a healer is a process, right? So talk to us about that.
Yeah, it's definitely a process. And I feel like there's so many little experiences throughout my life that kind of led me to the path that I'm on. And it's so funny because originally, like all growing up, I was like dead set that I was going to be like this editor-in-chief in New York City, doing all these things, like getting coffee every day. And that's just the life for whatever reason, like 5-year-old Victoria was envisioning for herself. And then once I got into high school, I was talking with an English professor about that dream. And he looked at me and he was like, "You're not going to make money from that." And it's kind of funny that I ended up in social services. But anyways, so from there, also simultaneously happening, I was going through like my own mental health journey as a kiddo. My dad was military, and so there was a lot of like separation happening with deployments and all these things. And he was also going through his own mental health journey, and our relationship didn't look like a traditional like father-daughter relationship because he was diagnosed with PTSD. So I couldn't like run up to him, I couldn't like jump on him, I couldn't do all these things. And that really taught me that even though mental health is present, it doesn't define a person, it's just an aspect of them. And so that really inspired my work around like stigma and making sure that we're having healthy, productive conversations around mental health. And then when I was 16, I ended up back in therapy again with an LCSW. And I just remember asking her directly, "What are you and what do you do and how do I do it?" And so here we are.
I love that, Victoria. You know what I mean? I think that a lot of times, um, in my personal view, I think that it would be beautiful to have more conversations, with therapists or with healers to hear about their journey of becoming,
Yeah.
because we've all gone through that grad school program and we get all the book knowledge, right? But then when we get out here and we get in the field, there's so much to learn, even with this conversation on energetic boundaries, because where I come from, in so many different like cultures and communities, you hear that word energetic boundary and it's like woo woo, and it wasn't until for myself personally, I had to open my mind to receiving and exploring the field, and not just the field of mental health and everything, but the field of being a human being and what makes us human and what are those parts. And then I came across energy psychology, blew my mind, right? And I'm like, oh my God, we don't know what we don't know. And I think that, for a lot of people who may think energy is a term of something new age or something woo-woo, but not recognizing it is a part of our own makeup, if you will. Can you, Victoria, kind of give definition,
Yeah.
right, as you understand it, to what energy is, and then define the energetic boundaries for us?
Absolutely. I think the easiest and tangible way to look at energy is kind of providing an example instead, if that's okay. So I think we can feel energy. Like when we walk into a room and we can automatically, like we use this in language all the time of, oh, it feels tense in here. So I think there's already like this social awareness that we can feel energy, but it's almost disconnected of like, yes, I can feel it, but I'm not going to acknowledge it and realize that there's work that could be done with it. And so energy to me is this perception, this feeling that exists around people, and then also internally of how am I feeling right now and what is that projecting into the world? And there was a second part of that question, if you could repeat that.
Right. Well, I think it's powerful when you describe, okay, so first of all, I like to say that energy is the life force energy that fills the room and the space within and between us all, right? And it's that vibe, if you will, right? That sense, okay, of when you step into a room. So, we've all probably been in spaces where we probably entered into a room and we can tell an argument may have happened, or that there was something uh intimate going down, okay, or that there was some kind of juicy conversation, going on, because we sense this energy that's in the space and within us, right? And so that can be information. Okay, the information. So the other part of that was, can you define the energetic boundary? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, so to me, that means the ability to preserve our own energy and recognizing with people that we're interacting with, or even things like if we're pouring a lot into self-care, good thing. If something's
Mhm.
taken away from us, like hobbies, responsibilities, etc. So that's looking at, okay, I'm feeling balanced. It's a good flow. Like I'm receiving something from this thing, but I'm also giving equal amounts. Or if in relationships, especially with family, sometimes it's usually the most common one, someone is just taking so much. They're just drawing this energy out of us, and we're left feeling exhausted. That's a really good indicator of that energetic boundary that it needs some work. If we're feeling exhausted, tired, etc., we need to do some work there.
You know, I love that, Victoria, because there's so many conversations, right, going on in y'all whole space. Because to me, my awareness with it is still very new and very fresh, but it's like the beacon in the field, if you will, that's trying to get our attention. When you say that, first of all, when we start noticing, right, the signals of us being tired, because there's that big conversation going on about burnout, especially for us as therapists or people who are in the helping field or profession that requires you to attend and to give a lot of yourself to another person or to problem solve or whatever. And there's these conversations about burnout. But what I'm discovering is exactly what you just said, is we are not listening to the signal and paying attention to it to recognize, am I over giving? Am
Yeah.
I over serving? Am I doing more than what's needed? Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Because and you clear this up for me, because in my view, when I think about this reciprocation in the energy field, right? That of course, for us as healers and therapists, I say this, Victoria, I'm recognizing that there can be people who are called to be therapists, but then you have those people who are chosen to do this work because it's like a divine calling, right? That beckons you. Okay. And there are some people who come in and they're not fulfilled doing the work.
Yeah.
But when you are, in fact, and you embody the spirit in the work of the healing of the healer, then we need to pay attention to how sometimes we are giving that output, but then also that reciprocation of joy or fulfillment um, needs to also be showing up. And when it's not, right, we need to really take a look at that. Does that make sense?
It totally does. And immediately in my mind, I was thinking about a grad school professor that told me like not to be a sponge and to recognize limits of how far we absorb things and how we wring ourselves out at the end of the day. And with that joy and fulfillment piece, I think even like now in my own journey, I've been having that conversation of, okay, something's happening. Like I'm feeling a little tired at the end of the day. Something needs to change. And I actually like recognized that it was probably population of I was working with a population and I feel like it's just time for me to step out of that population and maybe focus on something else. And that's okay. Sometimes it's hard and it's stigmatized in this line of
Yeah.
work. Whoa, what do you mean? But it's just me recognizing, okay, like I'm feeling a little burnt out with this specific population. It's time to start working with a different one for now.
Oh, I'm
Cool.
so sorry.
You
This
want
is
to go?
so juicy.
Get it,
May
get it,
I?
go, Rolla.
Because I want to hold space for, oh, Victoria, I love you. Okay, because being oh gosh, being a therapist, being a healer, and then when you come out of grad school, right? A lot of the times we don't realize this huge path of discovery we're about to enter into, and that we have the ability to make a choice about looking at what group of people do we best serve that resonates with who we are and the why we're here in the field. One thing that you said that I would love to anchor us as healing professionals in is remembering that our bodies have to also be ready to carry and to do that work and to give to that field. And if you're serving with a pot, I know for me, I can't do kids.
Same,
I don't bring me your kids. I
same.
don't know. I don't do kids. And I'll tell you this one too. And y'all don't come for me. I do not like working with depressed males.
We are the same person. I think that. I think we're
Okay.
the same person. That's exactly that's why I was like, population, because I don't want to be sold. But thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that.
I can't. I that or the clients, and I love working with clients who have complex trauma. That's my jam. But I need them to be in at least the preparation stage of change. I don't do well with human beings who are in the contemplation phase of change. I can't help you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. I want to talk to you, Victoria, a little bit about the trauma-informed care and you being from a military family. Kind of talk to us more about why is that kind of trauma-informed care? How is that for you, or why is that important for military members and their families?
Oh man, it's so important. I think it's important from all aspects.
Yeah.
Most obvious being military families endure deployments, combat-related PTSD. Also, military sexual trauma is unfortunately really,
Military
really
sexual trauma. Yeah, we had a training on that out here. It was so impactful. Yes.
yeah, and I could go down like a whole like pigeonhole of MST and just the stigma and the words and like all the things that exist in military culture, but I won't. I'll hold myself back. But also, if we look at ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, they added deployments count as abandonment and separation in the study. And that's huge for these little kiddos that are going through that because that's not something that parents are intentionally doing, but it's counting as an ACE now. And so there's a lot of work around trauma-informed care that needs to be done with military populations. And I think what that really looks like is recognizing that trauma impacts the way a person sees the world, how they form their relationships, and experiences safety. And a lot of times in my work, I always give this example of, a crowd in Walmart means like there's a sale happening, something super, super fun is going down. Let's party over there. But a crowd overseas means danger, run away, get to safety. And our bodies aren't able to recognize the difference. And so I think just little nuances like that, it's critical to integrate with military care.
So, question, did your dad's experience like that when he would come home, would he like install or sort of, we talked about absorbing, would he kind of teach you subconsciously some of those, his symptoms impact the way you saw the world? Does that make sense? So like when you're going to Costco and he would be like, no, we're not going down that aisle because, snipers are above us. I've heard that before. They can't have anything above or the world is dangerous. Did any of those beliefs kind of happen in your home or my husband used to be a police officer, so there's lots of conversations about, safety and being aware of your environment and those kinds of things. So I'm just curious what that's been like for you.
Yeah, he didn't explicitly state those things, but if we would ever go out to eat, like he would have to have like his back against a wall, like
Yep.
looking at everybody.
Mhm.
I think his experience, what most shaped that for me was he was more just like a solemn, like quiet person once he came back. And when I was older, he shared with me that one of his providers looked at him and said, "There's nothing I can do for you. You're not going to get better."
Ooh.
And that's when I was like, okay, that's not cool. That's not okay. And I mean, as like fast forward, he's doing a whole lot better now. He's found an amazing therapist and he did alpha stim therapy, which has been incredible for him. Um, but seeing that and witnessing that, I was like, no. And that's really where my passion kicked off.
That's powerful.
The Healing Summit, can you talk to us a little bit about if you were to kind of talk to him about energetic boundaries or even your past self, that child part that was, I'm not doing therapy, but, you know, that
Yeah.
past part in there, could you talk, how would you describe sort of this energetic boundary to that younger version of yourself?
Mm. Like how she would implement it, or
Like if you're right now self, so let's just say you're, whatever age you are, you went back to that 8-year-old self and was to give her a piece of advice about energetic boundaries, what would you say to that part?
I would share with her to recognize her role as an 8-year-old little girl and to really enjoy that. Because I think with my dad being on deployment so much, even though like mom is incredible, she never asked me to step up, but I'm very type A, and so I did as a kid. And I think just encouraging her to recognize like these are not responsibilities, these are not boundaries that you have to change yet. It's okay to just play and be present in life and not be looking up colleges when you're 10 years old, because that's exactly what I did.
For real, girl. I feel you.
Yeah, I was like, it's like, girl, just chill. Like you're okay at 8 years old. That's what I
You
would tell
know, I love that because I love the way you express that because I
Yeah.
think that in the culture and the time that we're living in, um, even for the kids of our time, you don't really hear that invitation or that permission really given for them to play and to be kids and not to take on um, certain responsibilities that later on become burdens, right? And that just be a kid, you know. My question for you is, can you help those of us those who are listening and will come across this podcast, can you kind of define or describe the dimensions that make up energetic boundaries?
Sure. So the dimensions or aspects of energetic boundaries, it starts with us as individual people looking at, okay, what exists in life. And the reason why I say like people or things is because sometimes things can take a lot out of us. I think about folks that have endured like religious trauma, or if they've endured just overcommitting themselves to community service, like
Mm-hmm.
all these things, right? Like inherently, we wouldn't view like church or community events as something that we would count as a boundary that we need, but sometimes we do because
Mm-hmm.
people like to kind of like tap and be like, hey, like you should be doing more, even though if we should not be. So, dimensions first is looking at what exists in life. And then from there, I like to look at, okay, what am I giving to these different things? And so that would, I like to do it on paper, and they'll see this in the summit. They'll have an opportunity to do this. So then we're drawing a line based off of the type of relationship that exists there. So it can either be a strong relationship, a weak relationship, maybe it's a really strained relationship. And then we do looking at step three of where is the energy flowing? Is it coming back to us? Is it only exiting? Is it equal? And then we're able to see in the fourth aspect of this, okay, I have, say, 5 things that take energy from me, but I have 6 that bring energy in, and I have one that's equal. So I'm actually at a +1 for energy received. But if that was flipped, we would be at a -1 for energy going out, and that's not a really great place to be. It's just not sustainable.
Yeah.
To me, the signals that go off, and I hope that we have you back, not only in the summit, because I think what you're sharing and what you're teaching, Victoria, is
Mhm.
the um the fibers, the 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 groundwork beneath the foundation of how we're functioning, because you're talking about life force energy and the life force energy that we are giving in sharing with humanity and with the world around us. I think today, hopefully, if those of us are listening and really tuned in, we really need to know it matters. Okay, because the first thing in my mind that came to when you started even describing the diagram and taking a look at what am I giving? And then we take that look at how is that coming back to me? Because again, that's the principle of just as much as you give, you also deserve to receive. Otherwise, we end up in deficit, and that deficit can become resentment and so many other things, right?
So when you're thinking about the work that you're doing, do you feel like it's something that you were prepared for, or something that you feel like you knew might be the path, or did you just kind of come upon this energetic boundary experience?
Yeah, so I remember in undergrad school, so the technical term of this is an eco map. That is a throwback to undergrad social work. And so that really called to me when
Yeah,
I viewed it,
yeah.
because I was in a space where, because I started going to college when I was 17. Didn't do my senior year of high school. I just dove straight into full-time college. I was working full-time to pay for school, and life was hectic. It was so busy. Um, and when I saw that on the board, it just clicked in my mind of like, oh my gosh, I need to make a change or else this is going to go nowhere. And so I implemented that, and then I started doing it like a quarterly review just to check and like see how I'm doing. Because I think as humans, especially for me, I just get in this mode of like, okay, I'm going until like I hit a wall. And then it's like, whoa. And I was missing these signals that my body was telling me.
Yeah.
And so the eco map helped me really tell, okay, like there are signals that are going off, and I need to make a change to these energetic boundaries to feel balanced and be able to accomplish the things I want to accomplish. And now, thankfully, it's become more of like a subconscious check going on. I'm usually like pretty in tune of like, oh, that area needs some work without having to get like intentional with the paper.
So you mentioned liking iced coffee and dance moms and those. I love all kinds of shows. I don't know why I can't get off a body cam. I just love I like that. I like all kinds of shows. Game of Thrones. Tamera turned me on to. So what do you how does that fill you up?
Yeah, I have a nice coffee right now. Just like I always like to make the joke that if I don't have a nice coffee, like that's a signal to people around me that something is wrong. But
So is it
those
always caffeinated?
yes, always caffeinated. I actually just had a baby, so I had to go like the 9 months of decaf, and it was tough,
Oh,
but
your baby. Oh, that's so exciting.
yeah. But those things fill me up because the coffee is like a little sweet treat in the day. It's like that little dopamine hit that just like helps me get going. And then the dance moms, it's just something that I'm able to like turn my brain off and just kind of allow me to sit and just experience. I also really like fantasy books. I think that is an opportunity for me just to sit down in a space, especially being a new mom, working, like all the things, like that is me time. And I think it's so critical to have me time and having those conversations with partners, family, whoever we're living with, of being able to make sure that's carved out.
I know Tamira and I have talked a lot about the momming and the working and the transitioning. And
Yeah.
so, I went from a family of, me, my husband, and my daughter to a family of five when I had my boys. And boys are just a whole different experience raising, wild boys. And, so I can totally understand with the work-life balance and trying to make everything, the energy there. And sometimes I get home, y'all, I'm just tired. I'm just drained, and so just trying to make sure that I can give it to the family at home. So I think that's really important. Tamira, what are your thoughts about that? Because I know that you have a lot of experience, we've had a lot of talks about that.
I was totally, I'm a mom of four boys, and then also um, being on this journey in private practice and doing the work that we do, and then you integrate being a mom. And as a matter of fact, I was kind of processing this yesterday
Mhm.
because I think sometimes there's this standard for us when we become moms that we have to always be on, and there's like this expectation, right? That if as moms, if we're not giving and if we're not showing up, then that trigger of I'm not a good mom, I'm a bad mom kind of pops up, you know? And I was kind of processing that yesterday because the mom in me was frustrated.
Yeah,
I've raised four boys, four, and two of them are grown now.
yeah,
And it's no secret that once you're a mom and you have that mommy brain turned on, and if that bonded connection is there, um, your brain is in surveillance all the time for those children that belong to you. And that in itself is can be taxing on our bodies, you know, and sometimes we don't have enough to give out. And I just like to say, it's okay. We really have to, I believe, because everybody's going to make their own choice and everybody has their own perspective. But I'm like, not that I'm objectifying us, but doggone it, if the car get on E, how much more are we
Mhm.
like cars? The cars get on E. The water's run out. You got to go restock and replenish. Are we not more than these material things? And if they deplete, our energy buckets do too. And I think that that's where uh, we get to discover. And I appreciate something you shared with us, Victoria, because I think a lot of the times, um, you know, there's all these rules about healthiness and if you're well, and these conversations from caffeine to all the do's and don'ts. But you get to have these pleasures, and it could be simple pleasures that will fill your energy bucket, but you have to know what those pleasures are, what feels good to you, not to these standards and these rules that society is often handing us as moms or even as healers about what is appropriate and what's all this. You have to notice your brain and body and what fills your cup, what fills your soul, what ignites it, what sparks it. And then I'll say this, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this too, because I did, I'm in recovery, y'all, from I'm the type of person that I do not believe in talking about something I don't understand or
yeah,
comprehend.
yeah,
Comprehension and knowledge is a huge thing for me.
yeah,
So I'm in recovery from over learning, but I've done so many different Reiki level. I mean, y'all, it's ridiculous.
yeah, yeah,
Okay. And so with Reiki, the thing that I loved about Reiki energy healing was that we learned that the life force energy that we do embody, it belongs to the divine realm. And if we can learn to tap into the divine realm and use that life force energy and while preserving our own, like I'll tell my clients, for example, I am a healer, but I am not the healer. I'm
Mhm.
just, like you said, the conduit,
Yeah.
right? I'm just a
so
conduit.
powerful.
And if we can learn to not give to our clients and people the energy that is ours, okay, and learn how to lean into, whether it's through mindfulness, through it's whether it's through meditation, but there is a way to access that divine energy, life force healing, and funnel it to the people that we're serving that can preserve us. Does that make sense, y'all?
Yeah, because it's the power dynamic, right? So when they're coming to you and they're like, oh, I'm going, here to this healer and the expectation for us to heal, sometimes we don't, it doesn't, the energy together with the patient isn't, working. So we have to also honor that. And there's another healer for them, right?
you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think just kind of like immediately what came to mind for me, since you're talking about like Reiki, is like in yoga, the ultimate goal is self-realization, but there's a gentleness approach to that. It's not believe that this is like a state that we have all the time. And I think that it's just recognizing that we're human beings, we're not human doings. And as long as we're on this journey of reaching self-realization, but recognizing that it's not a permanent state, we might have moments where we're there. It creates this more like gentle kindness towards ourselves, which I think really radiates externally too.
Oh, Victoria, you said something that I hope we have you come back for, okay? Because you said something that I think is so freaking powerful. And y'all, I feel like I'm out here. I feel like the people on my page are probably gonna be like, they probably learning a whole bunch about me today with a different conversation. But you said something that I think is so powerful. So I'm gonna paint the picture.
Okay.
So I think a lot of the times, first of all, it's when you said we don't always stay in a certain state all the time. But I think unintentionally and unconsciously, we expect ourselves to be in a certain state all the time. And I was just sharing with a client of mine because I became aware of this. So this is like divine confirmation for me.
Mhm.
I'm like, when you're traveling in your car, you put the car in park, it doesn't always stay in drive. You have to put it in neutral, in reverse in order for you to operate and do the things that you need to do and get where you're trying to go. And we're the same way. You're not in the same state all the time.
Yeah.
And making room for that, that there is a presence or there is a being self that will come to the wheel during certain parts, times of the day, certain seasons, whatever you will. And rather than fighting it, ignoring it, shaming it, beating it up, or whatever the case may be, or trying to hold on to it so it doesn't leave, you know, um, we can just welcome it. Or what are your thoughts about that if I'm making sense here?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think that it's a good bridge from like Eastern philosophy to Western medicine because we see this also in acceptance and commitment therapy of this idea of like self as context, how we're operating in the world, like all these things. And it creates this opportunity for grace and space. Like that's my favorite thing. I probably say that like realistically probably to every client every single day because it's such a powerful raw and true thing. We don't give ourselves enough grace and we definitely don't give ourselves enough space to just simply exist sometimes because like shame and guilt they just like creep in and dig their claws into us and without recognizing like hey, it's okay for me to just be. All this other stuff will still be there later. It's just a huge opportunity to just be present with the self and just honor what showed up today. I think that's another really powerful thing is honoring the version of you that you have and recognizing that she is ever changing. The version of me yesterday, she doesn't exist today, but the version today is really, really glad that the version of me yesterday existed, if that makes sense.
That is so beautiful. I just,
Making these t-shirts,
Victoria,
I'm trying to figure out what to put on these shirts, and it's like, do something today your future self will be proud of.
Yeah.
you know.
It's like, yes,
I just love it. And you know what, y'all, and y'all don't come for me. Don't come for me. Whoever's listening, don't come for me because I'm not judging. But the thing that I love about what we're doing with Journey Through the Eyes is having these organic
Yeah,
conversations with clinicians and not trying to do this performance dance, but just real life conversation with other healers, with other professionals who are wearing multiple hats and walking in a variety of different shoes, and painting this, well, not even making, I want to say, in a sense, kind of painting this picture or demonstrating for us that we're all on this journey that we call life. And we all have this invitation, if we're paying attention to it, for grace and for space. And when I hear that from you, Victoria, it means, giving ourselves permission to let patience, time, and giving ourselves room to continue exploring and growing rather than focusing on trying to get it all done and be everything for everybody, do everything just right and perfect. And negotiating or hustling for validation or for an echo from the people around us to demonstrate to us or to sound that we're worthy or enough. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, it totally does. And I think there's a movement of that happening right now, especially like on TikTok. There's this whole trend right now of just like this is the point. And it's like people showing videos of like just being present in life. And I love that because it's so true. Like we forget the point or we're trying to search for the point, but it's really just to be and to exist and to have these relationships with people.
Mhm.
And I think that is just awesome to see just general society being open to that because I feel like as a healer we're fighting society and stigma all the time.
Yeah,
And
for
it's
sure.
nice to see them like actually kind of aligning for a moment.
That is
You
so.
know, oh,
Go
I'm sorry.
ahead.
Go ahead, Kathy.
No, it's
Mm-mm, go
okay.
ahead.
Well,
You
I was
sure?
thinking about the idea of the stigma and like we're always fighting. If you look at it from a nervous system perspective, what is that? If we're always heightened and activated and fighting. So I think that to our point today is even more important that we do address social core norms and disparities, specifically right now with all the diversity, equity, and equal access being removed from a lot of the programs or attempting to be removed. We are still, and Tamira and I talk about this, we are still the force for change. That doesn't change what we do, right? And so still kind of making sure with that fight that we still have time in the parasympathetic to rest and digest. And, a couple weeks ago, I took some time for myself and it was like, and I was more tired than I thought I was. And so, I was like, okay, I really need to do this more often and kind of because we're always in this energy and this expectation of let me help you, let me and trying to figure out the perfect interweave or the perfect intervention or how to do this ego state therapy or how to implement this intervention. And we're always thinking about, well, I'm always thinking about how to help this client the next session if they have a block or an abreaction or something, right? I'm like, okay, let me get to my people. And we're always even outside, and then we're trying to figure out, okay, I just told this patient today, get down on your level and the level of your kid and look at him in the eye and ask him to do a request. And then I find myself getting upset, like, do this, with my child. And it's like, okay, so then we reverse those expectations, we give the advice, but can we also apply it? And how do we hold both of those together, right? And not feel guilty that we're also human.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's so,
Yeah.
yeah, go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Victoria. No, go ahead.
Oh, I immediately thought of like moments and sessions where a client's like asking of like, oh, this thing happened. What do I do? And in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, that exact thing happened to me. What am I
Exactly.
going to tell you? I'm such a hypocrite.
I
Like all
know.
internal dialogue, right? And then afterwards, it's like, oh man. But I think again, like we are humans, and I I think that we sometimes like to pretend that we're not.
Mhm.
Or we're
You know,
expected, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Or, when with this conversation that is coming up now, I think it's so important. And Kathy and I have talked about this. And um, for me, I think us as therapists and healers
Yeah.
taking on the mindset of being a student of our own journey has helped me so much because it made me recognize that as, a healing professional, there's so much going on in the lives of the human beings that we serve. And then when we invest in ourselves to get these holistic, above and beyond type of trainings to be able to help our clients to rewire their brains, their nervous system, and lots of other incredible things, that we remember that we don't have, y'all, that we don't have these skills and these tools just to give them to our clients, but that our greatest work is when we give them to ourselves.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that after today that that the people who come across this podcast will hold that space for themselves, that our clinical or healing paths, models, techniques, and strategies, that we're not just here to give them and to share them to support our clients, but the most brilliant work is when we do it for ourselves, and then give ourselves permission to receive support as well when there are places we can't reach because it's beyond our ability as a human being, and that we too deserve support. And so this is the incredible segue into saying that we're inviting other clinicians to join us, right, at the Healing Summit because we want to come together as a tribe, as a community, and hold space. And then to get us out of, right, those expectations and lean more into um, I loved how you talked about the Eastern and Western
Yeah.
conversation because I've come to realize, and I guess this could be another podcast too. I've come to realize, y'all, forgive me, and y'all, don't come for me, that the medical model in the Western world we live in is severely broken,
Yeah.
and the Eastern models have long time been demonized and shunned and looked at as woo woo, but they've had it right the whole doggone freaking time.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And so if we can just embrace and take a look and bring that to the communities and the clients that we're serving and to ourselves, I think we're on the brink of seeing us as healers. In my brain, y'all, it's like if we can get all of the healers and therapists to really embody and nurture their inner healer, it'll look like we're pouring water and light onto the world, onto the globe, right, to brighten it and to lift it, and so many other incredible things.
And we need that so much right now, don't we? We need all that healing and all that energy. And I think in certain times in history, we've been called forward to action, needed specifically to come forward at different times. And for me, in my opinion, this is one of those times. And so I get to live it, I get to be it, but those envisioning of that becomes more critical for the collective consciousness, right? There's this
Mm.
whole thing of Schumann resonance where you look at the energetic shifts in the earth and how that affects all of our energetic being. Have you guys heard of that? The Schumann resonance? Have you guys heard of that?
What is that exactly?
I'm still learning myself, but the basic idea of it is the vibrational energy of the earth. And so when all
Okay.
of the consciousness is raised, or these energies or these forces are happening on the earth, it raises the energetic vibration of the earth. And so that can be measured in this thing called a Schumann resonance. It's a very basic explanation, probably to the extent of my understanding of it. But there's a bunch of TikToks on it, if you're on TikTok, and it just is this idea of collective consciousness, basically, and the earth
Yeah.
vibration.
Yeah, see, and I've heard it, but not in that term.
Mhm.
But I really do believe that we're in the season of that right now, and I think that again, we're being called to gather together, because of that. Because I think it is just time. I think all of the problems, all of the things, all the yucky stuff that folks are in a pickle about is signposts that we are needed. And before we can really go into this next era, this next phase of human evolvement, I just think we need to serve and to pour in and get our cups full. And why this summit is needed at such a time as this. So
Yeah.
we're being called to the mountain.
So, Victoria, would you like to have any closing remarks or things you want to share, or key takeaways that you'd like for our audience to hear today?
Sure. I think if there's only like a set things that people take away from the words that I've shared, I really want to center on we're human beings, not human doings. Give yourself grace and space because you absolutely deserve it. And just in case someone needs to hear it, you are doing enough.
Mm, beautiful.
Yeah, we can just sit with that, right? I felt that.
Mm.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay, well, we are at the end of our time today. We want to extend tons and tons of gratitude and space to you up there in Fairbanks and that little baby that you have. I'm so excited for you as a new mom and hope that you really kind of embrace that as a learning experience for you as a mother. No, it's
Hmm.
changed my life. So we're here for you.
Thank you.
Of course.
So, anything, Tamira, you want to say in closing?
No, just such a wonderful time. Just hoping that folks, even if they go back to the replay, so many juicy nuggets that Victoria shared that we can take with us to navigate these waters we call life, work, and all the things, and just want to really send the voice of invitation to the healing and helping professionals, whether you're a coach, whether you're a Reiki practitioner, wherever you are as a healer in your journey, especially for our therapy brothers and sisters and cousins and everything else.
Yeah.
We want to invite you to join us at the Healers Summit, and come and get your cup full and come and learn and experience Victoria in a big, beautiful way.
Okay, so we are here. We're here for you. We're here for it. Come and we will find the link in your show notes. I am Kathy, your co-host with Rewire 360, here with Tamera J. Brown, and with the Rise Psychotherapy. We honor you, we see you, and you matter. Until next time, we'll see you. Take care.